A crack of thunder, a flash of white light. Somewhere in an ancient forest, a tree begins to smolder, and everything changes. Long before Germany existed as a country, the land itself may have witnessed one of the most important moments in human history, the discovery of fire. In this video, we will look at real archaeological evidence from this region and piece together how early humans may have first learned to use fire safely. Let's start with an important clarification before we go further. The people we are talking about in this story were not Germanic tribes in the historical sense. This story likely stretches back hundreds of thousands of years, long before anything resembling Germanic culture existed. We are talking about early hominins, possibly an ancestor species sometimes called Homo heidelbergensis, living in the land that would eventually become Germany. With that said, this land holds some of the oldest and most debated evidence of fire use anywhere in Europe, and it likely all started the same way fire often begins in nature, with lightning. Quick question for you. Have you ever watched a lightning storm and thought about how differently early humans may have experienced that same event? Keep that feeling in mind as we go through this. The moment of first contact. Scientists generally agree that early humans did not invent fire out of nothing. In nature, wildfires are often sparked by lightning strikes, and evidence suggests this was likely humanity's very first exposure to controlled flame. Not something they created, but something they encountered. Imagine a lightning strike hitting a tree, followed by smoke, then flame. For a group of early humans nearby, this would have been a terrifying, unfamiliar event. Fire moves, grows, and destroys. Most of the group likely would have instinctively backed away from something so dangerous and unpredictable. But evidence from human behavior, both ancient and modern, suggests that fear is rarely the only reaction in moments like this. Alongside fear, there is often curiosity, and it may have only taken one individual, cautiously stepping closer instead of retreating, to begin an entirely new chapter of human history, from fear to fascination. This shift from fear to careful curiosity is where real archaeological evidence becomes especially interesting. One of the most significant sites for understanding this transition is Bilzingsleben in modern-day Germany, where archaeologists have discovered burnt remains dating back somewhere between 280,000 and 414,000 years ago, arranged in distinct semicircular patterns. This structured pattern is important. Wildfires do not typically leave neat, organized traces like this. While some researchers remain cautious about whether this specific evidence proves deliberate human use of fire, the semicircular arrangement strongly suggests intentional behavior, rather than simply the leftover damage of a passing natural fire. Have you ever been drawn towards something you knew was dangerous, purely out of curiosity? That very human instinct may be one of the reasons we eventually learn to work with fire instead of only fearing it. A second major clue, not far away. Another important site, Schningen, also located in Germany, adds more to this story. Researchers there identified what were initially described as ancient hearths dating to a similar time period, alongside remarkably well-preserved wooden spears used for hunting. It is worth being honest here. More recent, highly detailed scientific analysis of the Schningen site has actually raised doubts about whether these specific features were truly created and controlled by early humans, or whether they may have resulted from natural processes instead. This kind of scientific debate is a normal, healthy part of archaeology. Claims about early fire use are taken seriously specifically because the implications are so significant, and researchers work hard to avoid overstating uncertain evidence. Taken together, sites like Bilzingsleben and Schningen suggest that this region of Europe may have been home to some of the earliest experiments with controlled fire, even if the full picture remains debated among scientists today. The long, frustrating road to control. Encountering fire is one thing. Learning to create and control it is an entirely different challenge. Based on patterns seen across early human history more broadly, researchers believe this transition likely did not happen quickly or easily. Early attempts at creating fire deliberately, such as rubbing dry sticks together to generate friction and heat, likely involved long stretches of failure. Tired arms, raw hands, and no spark, repeated attempts across days, weeks, or even longer, before any real success. This kind of slow, frustrating trial and error mirrors how most major human innovations likely developed, not through a single flash of genius, but through persistence. What about you? Have you ever kept trying at something difficult, long after it seemed easier to give up? That same stubborn persistence may be one of the oldest human traits we still carry today, the first successful spark. Eventually, evidence suggests something changed. A tiny ember, caught in dry moss or tinder, carefully coaxed with gentle breath, slowly growing from a fragile spark into something that could actually be sustained. This moment, small and quiet, compared to the dramatic lightning strike that may have first introduced fire to these early humans, likely represented an enormous turning point. Being able to create fire on demand, rather than waiting for a rare natural event, would have completely changed daily life. It meant warmth through cold nights, protection from predators, and eventually the ability to cook food, which many researchers believe played a major role in human evolution itself. From fear to ownership. What makes this story so compelling is the emotional shift it represents. Fire began as something entirely outside human control, terrifying, unpredictable, and dangerous. Over an enormous span of time, through fear, curiosity, failure, and eventual success, it slowly became something early humans could create, maintain, and rely on. This transformation from fear to ownership may be one of the most important emotional and practical shifts in all of human history. A source of danger became a tool, a reason to run became a reason to gather closer together. Why this discovery may have changed everything. It is worth pausing to consider just how far-reaching the consequences of controlled fire may have been. Beyond warmth and protection, many researchers believe that cooking food with fire could have made nutrients significantly easier for the human body to digest and absorb. Some scientists have even proposed that this dietary shift may have contributed to changes in human brain size and development over hundreds of thousands of years. Fire may have also reshaped how these early groups organized their daily lives. A shared flame likely became a natural gathering point, a place to return to at the end of the day, to share food, and possibly even to communicate in ways that went beyond simple survival tasks. In this sense, the earliest hearths uncovered at sites like Bilsingsleben may represent more than just evidence of warmth. They may represent some of the very first physical traces of shared human community. A small story to think about. Imagine an entire group, once scattered and afraid at the mere sight of flame, now sitting closely together around a small, carefully tended fire they created themselves. The same element that once sent them running now sits calmly at the center of their camp, offering warmth, light, and safety. That shift from fleeing fire to gathering around it captures something powerful about human adaptability. Even in the face of real danger, early humans appear to have found a way to observe, learn, and eventually turn fear into a tool for survival. Final thoughts. The story of how early humans in this region first encountered and eventually controlled fire remains only partially understood, pieced together carefully from burnt earth, ancient tools, and centuries of careful scientific debate. But even with the uncertainty, the broader pattern is clear. What likely began as a terrifying encounter with lightning eventually became one of humanity's most important tools, built through fear, curiosity, failure, and quiet persistence. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe for more. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.